Okay, we're recording. Good morning, Judy.
Good
My
morning.
name is my name is Sam, and today is August 4th, and we'll be doing your oral history interview for the Houston Asian American Archive. Um, Firstly, could I just get a brief introduction about yourself? Like name, profession maybe, and so on.
Okay, sure. So my name is Judy Lee, and I was born here in Houston in 1956. And so that's a long time ago. And the community was very different.
Mhm.
My dad is Chinese, but my mother is not. She's a mixture of German, Hungarian, Greek, Italian. We just did a DNA thing. So we just found all this out because we used to tell people, oh, yeah, she's German, but she's actually a
Uh,
lot more complicated. And I grew up in Houston, saw a lot of changes. I think the population was probably when I was born was like in the under 500,000. So now it's over 4 or 5 million. So it's, you know, seen a lot of changes, and especially with the Chinese community. That's the community I'm most familiar with. It's just really grown. It used to be for probably the first 20 years of my life, if I saw another Chinese person, I pretty much knew them or knew
oh
their
wow.
family. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and then all that just really changed a lot. So it's now it's very rare, very rare. If we go into a Chinese restaurant that's full of Chinese people, like I won't know anybody, or if I do, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So I went to school here. I started off um, in elementary school was a Catholic. My mom was Catholic, so I went to Catholic school for elementary, and then switched over to public school. Graduated high school. Went to a small Catholic university called University St. Thomas, which is very close to Rice in the Montrose area. And then after that, I went to law school at the University of Houston Law Center. And after I graduated, I really did not know what I wanted to do. I kind of fell into oil and gas for almost 2 years, and it was incredibly boring, very transactional. And then my parents had a business. They had a printing and office supply business. Earlier in my life, they had a grocery business, but they changed to printing and office products, and they needed a lot of help. And I was just like, I'm going to quit my law career and work with the family business, right? Not what I was expecting to do, but I wanted to have a family, and I figured that would also be a lot more family friendly environment. So I did that for about 10 years, and then they sold the business, and I was looking again, what should I do? It was like fresh new start, like just getting out of school.
Mhm.
And I started interviewing people about what they did and how they liked it. I thought maybe I'll go into teaching, and I thought, oh no, I don't think I can handle handle that. And one of the people I spoke to was Gordon Kwan, and he was working as an immigration attorney and had his own law firm. And he said, you should come and work, and you don't even have to work as an attorney, just work as a legal assistant to see if you even like it. And I really, really enjoyed it, and I ended up being in the immigration law field for over 30 years.
Wow.
So I retired 2.5 years ago, and just been having a really nice retirement other than COVID.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
So is that
Uh,
enough detail
oh
for kind
yeah.
of my life
Yeah, yeah,
story?
yeah.
Yeah,
There,
yeah.
that was more than enough. We'll just
Okay,
like
good.
go throughout the interview and kind of delve back into little parts of that in more
Okay,
detail. But that was an excellent introduction. Thank you, Judy.
good.
Um, yeah, kind of backtracking to like your early life. Kind of mentioned you were born and raised in Houston. You went to
Yeah.
school here. Um, how would you describe like the household and neighborhood that you grew up in?
Yeah. So early on, my parents had a grocery store, and we actually lived above the store. So there were living quarters, sleeping quarters, I should say, for the most part above, but then the kitchen and the living room were behind the store on the first floor. It was a little store called Jean's Food Market. and it's gone now. It's
Mhm.
been taken over by, it was on Leland Avenue. I think it was 3404 Leland. And it was right across the street from a big dairy, Oak Farms Dairy.
Ah,
And they ended up buying that property. And I think they've got their milk trucks or their offices are over there now. But the times I remember in the grocery store were pretty still bright in my mind. I remember a lot about those times because it was actually a very idyllic childhood in a lot of ways. We had the whole run of the grocery store, and we didn't really have TV, computer games, or anything like that. So we spent a lot of time creatively. I remember playing in cardboard boxes a lot. And I remember my parents letting us have knives and box cutters to, take a big box and make, windows and doors and things
mhm.
like that. I think back, what were they thinking? We also were put to work. I mean, I remember running the cash register by the time I was 9 or so,
Wow.
and having an apron put on and dusting the shelves at like
Mhm.
5 or 6 years old, stocking
Wow.
things like that. But
Uh-huh.
we didn't know any better. We didn't know we were like forced child labor. We just did,
Yeah.
did what we had to do. We had a meat market,
Mhm.
and I remember working in the meat market, and one of the first tasks that was easy for a child was they would have a big cardboard box of sausages, and our job was to cut them two at a time so they could
Mhm.
be sold in pairs.
Uh,
And then using the meat slicer to slice up lunch meat and cheese,
mhm.
and waiting on customers, and it's just really I think there's a lot of stories like that with kids who grew up in the grocery store,
Mhm.
very similar, because I've got a lot of friends who had the same experience. And yeah, it taught you a lot. The neighborhood was predominantly Black at that time, a little bit of Hispanic.
Mhm.
So I had a really good exposure to, I guess, Black culture.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed that also. I had, good friendships with the kids in the neighborhood. There was a beauty salon next door to us. And I remember the lady's name was Miss Plattenberg. And on Wednesday night, she would have her church kind of meeting.
Mhm.
And there was not much air conditioning at that time. They would have the windows open. And I remember sitting or laying in our driveway and just watching that whole house shake because they would sing and clap. And I mean, it
Mhm.
was really a very strong memory, good memory that I
Mhm.
had.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So there were five of us in my family, and
Yeah, yeah.
my sister and I were the older ones. I was the second one. So I think I
Mhm.
remember a little bit more than the younger ones. My next sister is about 5 years younger than I am,
Mhm.
and by the time we sold the store, they were not that. They were probably 6 or 7, so they don't have as many memories. But it was a good time.
It
Yep.
it sounds like fun,
Yeah.
especially, like I was gonna ask about your grocery store, um, child job,
Yeah.
anyways, but it seems like
Yeah.
there's a lot of teamwork, a lot of, like, family time,
Yes. Yes, there
and
was.
I guess that, like, kinda leads into, like, another question I had, like, I noticed you put down you had 4 siblings, and you
Yeah.
kind of just talked about that. How was your relationship with your siblings then, and I guess now as well? And I guess also with your parents.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say we're a pretty close-knit family, but, the typical kind of Asian immigrant family, there was definitely a pecking order. And, dad is number one.
Yeah.
So there was a whole lot of don't tell your dad, or,
Oh.
having to do things that needed to be done that he probably,
Mhm.
wouldn't approve of. None of us left to go to college because he just felt like, no, we needed to be home, especially being girls.
Mhm.
My brother was the next to the youngest, and
Mhm.
he's passed on. He unfortunately had a heart attack about 5 or 6 years ago.
Mhm.
But I have him and the youngest sister. it wasn't until my sister's going into her third year of college that she was able to wear him down and talk him into letting her go to the University of Texas in Austin. But
Mhm.
everyone else had to stick close and live at home. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's you know that's just the way it was. I kind of have regrets. I feel like, gosh, I didn't really get to go off and go to another city for college and live in a dorm. But it's okay. Everything turned out fine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was basically you 4 sisters and a little brother.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that seems like a fun family.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. There was a lot of fighting. We were very rambunctious.
uh-huh.
Yeah. We like to
Yeah.
tattletale on each other and get each other in trouble too.
Uh-huh.
But underneath it all, we stuck together, and I feel like we're probably even closer now that we're
Mhm.
adults. Yeah.
Are you all in the Houston area still?
Um, Three of us are, and then I have one
Mhm.
sister who's in Austin, but she comes to Houston fairly frequently. And
Okay,
then my mom is still living. My dad passed away about 10 years ago. Yeah.
I see. I guess, like, what were some expectations, values, or lessons, that your parents kinda instilled upon you and your siblings during your upbringing?
Again, very typical Asian. I mean, the options were you go to college, number one.
Mhm.
Uh, then when you go to college, you need to be an engineer, a doctor, or a lawyer, and or a CPA. So,
Yeah.
a professional position.
Mhm.
Probably if we'd gotten into some type of business program, that would have been okay with the thought that eventually you have your own business. I
Mhm.
think that occupations, job opportunities were so limited for my parents. And that's why they started owning their own business because they realized that was really the only way to get ahead. And
Mhm.
so I think that was the path they felt like this is the path that needs to take place for our kids too, that you get into a profession where perhaps eventually you can open your own office or
Mhm.
business. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess the last question I have for this section, you did a really good job answering this already, but do you have any other like special memories from your childhood or early life that you would like to add before we kind of move forward chronologically?
Yeah, yeah. So I would say that, my growing up years were in the early 60s to the 70s. And that was a time of, it's kind of tumultuous with the civil rights going on. I do
Yeah.
remember riots happening down on Dowling Street, but nothing in Houston was, as serious. As maybe in some other parts of the country in terms of violence. And I didn't realize it at the time, but over the years and in kind of learning more about what was going on in the city at that time, I realized that we had really good people in the different communities that tried to make certain that the peace was maintained. So, leaders in the Black community, especially the Black ministers, the white community, and mostly the religious leaders took a role in that. And then, even in the Asian community, we had leaders like the grocery association and the restaurant association. And I
Mhm.
think people just talked, and so it avoided not everything. I mean, there were bad things that were going on, but I don't think it was near as bad as maybe in a lot of other cities. My own personal experience was in high school. We went through I'm sorry, not segregation, desegregation through
Mhm.
busing, which was like, for example, in Boston, that was a very violent, turbulent period. And in Houston, not so much. And I remember, especially at my high school, we ended up with pretty much a third Black, a third white, a third Hispanic, and a few Asians scattered in there. And I remember thinking, wow, this is actually pretty good. We had a human relations council, which I was part of, and
Oh.
for the most part, I think the administration or the teachers or just everybody worked very hard to keep things um, peaceful.
Mhm.
and good. So
Yeah.
that's what I'll say about my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, oh, just like curious, what was like the name of the high school you attended? I'm assuming it's
This
in
was
Houston.
yeah, this was Stephen F. Austin High School. It's actually
Stephen.
located very close to University of Houston.
Mhm.
Currently, I think they're predominantly Hispanic now.
Okay, that's good information for the archive at least.
Yeah.
Um, I guess yeah, kind of like transitioning to like your education.
Mhm.
Like what kind of subjects were you drawn to, or I guess also like repelled from during your high school years, and how did that kind of like carry on into college?
Yeah, so I remember, and I don't know if when this changed, maybe when everybody started suing each other and there was more liability, but as a kid, we used to go on field trips all the time. Like the whole
Mhm.
class, they'd take us to the fire station or the police station or a bakery. I remember going to like the commercial bakery to watch them, bake loaves of bread, and to the
Uh-huh.
bottling factory, and just things like that. And I remember going on a field trip to the emergency room of Bentov Hospital,
Oh, uh-huh.
and yeah, and seeing things that were like you really shouldn't want your kid to
Yeah,
see.
yeah,
'Cause I
yeah.
remember thinking early on, oh man, I do not want to be a doctor or a
Uh-huh.
nurse like that.
Mhm.
And I was pretty math challenged. I had a hard time with math, easy math. But I'm talking about when it got up to like calculus, trig, all those, like, oh my goodness.
Mm,
So that kind of left law. So I knew pretty early on that I would probably want to end up in law school if I could get in. So
mhm.
in college, I started off as a sociology major, which my dad was really unhappy with.
Oh,
What are you going to do with a sociology major, right?
yeah.
So I switched it to economics and business administration, and then I was able to get into law school. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Um, I guess, did you have any particularly meaningful experiences while you were in undergraduate?
In undergraduate, well, that's when I started getting serious with my boyfriend, who is now
Okay.
my husband.
Oh,
So
wow.
kinda
Uh-huh.
I kinda remember most of college just, being in love and
That's
spending
cute.
way more time than I should have with him,
Mhm.
and, cramming for all my classes.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I remember having to, spend a lot of late nights in the library, like, starting 2 days before the test to make up for all the times that I hadn't been,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I
studying.
mean,
So,
it
yeah,
worked
I mean,
out, right?
yeah, it worked out, but undergraduate was, pretty much a blur.
Mhm.
It was a small school, and so it was nice. I felt very comfortable
Yeah.
there. The neighborhood, of course, in the Montrose area with all the museums and things like that.
Mhm.
I do remember a lot of my time in college was spent chauffeuring my younger brother and sisters because they couldn't
Mm.
drive yet, and
Yeah.
also working in the family business.
Oh,
So
I
that
see.
was kind of the time went by very quickly. Yeah.
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 Were there any, like, clubs or activities, at your university that you kinda were involved with?
No, there really wasn't. I think I may have been like maybe in the economics club because my economics professor kind of encouraged me to do so.
Yeah.
Back at that time, there was not really a sports team or anything like that.
Mhm.
They did have fraternities and sororities, but
Yes.
again, my parents really did not understand that. They barely
Mhm.
understood it is frivolous. Is like I remember having a girlfriend who twirled the baton. I said, "Oh, I want to take baton twirling lessons." Are you
Mhm.
what is that?
Yeah.
What purpose? What good is it to twirl
Mhm.
a baton?
Yeah.
Slumber parties. What? You want to stay up all night? Why?
Uh-huh.
What for? You can't work the next morning. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a culture
Mhm.
clash for them, but you
Yeah.
still, we did a lot. I think they were more lenient or tried to become more open than many
Mhm.
parents, but
Yeah.
still, it was hard for them to understand some of the social
Mhm.
social activities.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you were also, like, one of the older ones, so I'm sure you were breaking, those barriers for the
Yes.
kids. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. I'm gonna show this transcript to my sisters so they'll
Uh-huh.
my younger sisters, so they'll know how
Yeah.
easy they had it, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, like, your university was religious or no?
Yes, it was a Catholic university,
Uh-huh.
but, yeah, they didn't force a religion on you. I think
Yeah.
really the main difference was that one of the graduation requirements was, 12 hours of theology and 12 hours of
Mm.
philosophy. And I thought those topics were interesting, so it was not a hardship
Mhm.
to complete those classes, yeah.
You mentioned you were Catholic, or your mother was, correct?
Yeah, and my dad converted in order to marry her, and
Oh,
but he
oh.
didn't really partake.
Yeah. Would you consider yourself a very religious person or,
I would say we were pretty church going for most of
Mhm,
my life. Yeah, yeah.
gotcha. I guess we can move on a little bit to, like, your professional degree.
Hmm.
You said you went to law school. How were some of your experiences in law school, like, compared to undergrad? And yeah.
Yeah. So I will say that I didn't have a lot of role models. There were not a lot of uh, because my community that I hung around for the most part, even though I went to high school and I had some non-Chinese friends, for the
Mhm,
most part, the close friends and the activities were all within the Chinese community. And there were not a lot of professionals
mhm,
that I knew. Mostly they were business owners, and for sure, not so many attorneys.
mhm,
And of all the attorneys that I knew, and there were, maybe less than 10, and I think almost all of them were immigration attorneys. And there
mhm,
was only one other female attorney, Hannah Chow. And when I went to law school, there was only one other female Asian law student. Her name was Roberta Yang, and I think she either was ready to graduate or had just graduated.
mhm.
So if you think about what's going on in law schools now,
Yeah.
and how many Asians there are, and how many Asian females there
Females,
are.
yeah. Mhm,
Yeah, yeah. And then I also did not have any close family members that were attorneys. And so I
mhm.
kind of started law school just pretty naively
Yeah.
with knowing that, well, you should network, you should get close to your professors, you should take internships. You were saying your dog might bark. Now my dog is barking.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
you should have internships. I mean, I didn't really pursue any of that
Mhm,
like I should have.
mhm.
Um, but again, it worked out, but it
Yeah.
was very different from the way things are now. Yeah.
I guess it's just part of, like, pioneering, I guess, being
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah. You have
yeah.
to just kind of figure your way around it.
Mhm.
Excuse me just a
No,
minute.
yeah, yeah, go for it.
Sam, can you get Ellie? Trying to get my husband to get the dog. I may have to let her out.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Sorry about that. She
No, no.
wanted to be let out, and in a
Yeah,
minute I'll
yeah.
probably have to get her back. Okay.
Uh-huh. No.
Yeah. So that was law school. When I
Mhm,
graduated from law school, I did not really know what I wanted to do. And it's really so silly, but just because every Asian attorney I knew practiced immigration, I
mhm.
kind of just put this stupid story in my head of, well, you shouldn't do immigration because
Yeah.
you should do something different.
Mhm.
And I kind of fell into oil and gas because I had a girlfriend who had already gotten a job, and she's like, "Well, you should try this out. They really need a lot of help."
Mhm.
And so, I did it, but it was terrible. I mean, it was just incredibly boring, very transactional work, just piles and
Mhm.
piles of documents to review. So,
Yeah.
before I started working with these oil and gas pooling agreements and mineral leases and things like that, I actually worked for a landman, and a
Mhm.
landman is the guy within a energy organization that actually goes out and gets the leases from the landowners, the mineral lease.
Oh. Mhm.
And so, in order to do that, they have to know who owns the mineral rights to a piece of land. So, I did
Mhm.
spend almost a year going to all these small Texas towns where
Mhm.
they were the county seat and
Yeah.
going up and digging up old land records.
Mhm.
And that was actually kind of interesting,
Mhm.
going into East Texas as a young single woman and
Yeah.
having the little old ladies at the courthouse, are you
Mhm.
okay? Are you
Yeah.
gonna be all right by yourself? And things like that. So that was
Mhm.
an interesting experience. Yep.
Yeah. I guess like this is a good segue from education to career.
Mhm.
Um, let's see. You ultimately specialized in business immigration and
Yeah.
family
Yeah.
immigration naturalization. I think I read those things.
Yeah.
Like what kind of ultimately led you to settle in that field? And what kind of was like your motivation?
Yeah. You feel it in your heart when you start working with people and, hearing their life stories and their uh, dreams and aspirations. It's quite a magnetic pull. And it just really, I just instantly said, "Oh, why was I fighting this for so many years? This is great.
Mhm.
This is so interesting." And so you had that personal contact. The pace was really great. Instead of
Mhm.
working on like one file for months and months at a time and just seeing paper, I mean, you could have clients coming in, almost every hour
Oh,
and
wow.
working on, literally hundreds of files at the
Mhm.
same time. You work on
Yeah.
one, and there's long stretches where the government will do what they need to do. And so it was, helping people, and the law was interesting and very complicated, very complex.
Mhm.
And that immediate gratification of, oh, I got a good result instead of, having to like if you handle that many cases, then every day you're probably going to get some kind of good news
Yeah.
or bad news. Yeah.
I know you also like briefly touched upon kind of having a shortage of mentors. But
Yeah.
like, later on throughout your career, were there any particular influences, both people or events that kind of guided you along the way?
Yeah, well, I mentioned Gordon Kwan, and I would say that he was very pivotal in,
Hmm.
my career choice and in getting me started.
Yeah.
And the other attorneys in the firm, there were a few of them that were also I just, was like a sponge and learned
Hmm.
not just the law, but how to deal with people, or in some cases, how not to deal with people, because you can see examples of both. A lot of women attorneys, and
Hmm.
then the immigration bar, I would say, in the throughout the country and in the city of Houston,
Hmm.
is a very collegial bar.
Hmm.
So instead of backstabbing and trying to steal clients and things like that, people
Yeah.
helped each other kind of against a common enemy, I guess you'd call it, which would
Hmm.
be the government.
Yeah.
Uh, so I really enjoyed learning from all of those folks, and
Hmm.
especially the women. There were a fair
Yeah.
number of women, not Asian, but
Hmm.
women attorneys, and very good role models. So
Yeah.
I really, really did enjoy my career for a long time.
Hmm.
As I got further in my career, then a big part of my practice was kind of managing, doing firm management and mentoring
Yeah.
younger attorneys. So
Yeah.
it was very rewarding also. Yeah,
Hmm.
enjoyed that.
Did did you work for the same firm for that stretch of time, or, did you hop
Well,
around?
it's a little complicated because we had some mergers and
Mm,
we kind of grew through two firms coming together and then
mhm.
people coming and going. Yeah. By the time I left, the firm was called Foster Global.
Yeah.
And we probably had at least 40 attorneys.
Wow.
Yeah. And a big office in Houston, a slightly smaller office in Austin. And then we had these little satellite offices
Mhm,
kind of all over the world in China and in Latin America. Yeah.
mhm. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So that was fun to watch that expansion also.
mhm. Yeah, it seems like you're really part of this, like, growing movement.
Yeah.
And I guess, like, a big question I had for you, and you definitely touched on it a few times already, it's like, how was it for you personally being both, an Asian American and a female in the law field? That's definitely not common during your time period, and I'm sure it's improving now, but still, one of those things that there is a lot of like glass ceiling, I want to say, in that area.
Yeah, yeah, I think there were, but I think you can't devote too much energy or thought to other people's perceptions of you. And I looking back, I think that I was just so busy. You just kind of just do your work, do good work, do
Mhm.
your best, be kind to other people, be generous. I think the only regret that I have is sometimes I feel like I could have been more generous with my time or with what do you call it, bringing other people along. But it took me a long time to get my footing to be able to have the bandwidth to do that.
Mhm.
But once I did do it, I thought, oh, this is even better. I mean, this is great being able to do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
We had a Asian American Bar Association here in Houston,
Mhm.
and I remember uh, probably I was one of the first members because I can remember there being like maybe 12 people sitting around a table in a Chinese restaurant
Yeah.
or a Japanese restaurant or
Uh-huh.
wherever we could meet.
Mhm.
And that organization has just grown tremendously. And when I see what they're doing and how dynamic the members are, a lot of the
Mhm.
younger attorneys, Asian attorneys, have gotten on with big law firms, the national law firms, which
Mhm.
was really, just not possible. Yeah. When I got out of law school, there were not even offers to interview.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to get your foot in the door to
Mhm.
any major law firms. Yeah.
That's great. I guess then, like, just, like, digging a little deeper, like, did you have any accounts of, like, discrimination or, like, cultural challenges, both with, like, your clients? I guess maybe not since you kinda specialize in immigration, so
Right, right. I think
but
the immigration clients were probably a little more, you know, um, open, I guess.
yeah.
Although there were some from very patriarchal societies that
Yeah.
didn't like the fact that I was female, but
Mhm.
they were by and large they got over themselves.
Yeah.
If you tell them this is what I think about your case and you speak
Mhm.
with authority and confidence, then it kind of overcame a lot of that. So
Mhm.
I think that's the main thing is once you become competent and confident,
Mhm.
then a lot of that just falls by the wayside. I would say that there probably were people who had their perceptions of me, but I don't think I really. If I gave it much of a crossing thought,
Mhm.
it was very minimal time spent on people like that. You just do what you need to do.
Yeah, I like that. I like that
Yeah,
mindset a lot.
yeah.
Um, and you did mention, the Asian American, like, lawyer, bar association.
Yes, yes.
I was curious, like, do you have any, like, other, like, professional involvements around, Houston, that you were kind of a big part of?
Yeah, so the Asian American Bar Association, I was not tremendously active in that because I
Mhm.
was really spending a considerable amount of time with the immigration bar. It
Mhm.
was called the American Immigration Lawyers Association or AILA,
Mhm.
and I was quite active in that and um, did a lot of volunteering, speaking at conferences. I was the
Yeah.
chapter chair for Texas, New Mexico, and um, Oklahoma for a year.
Mhm.
That almost ate my lunch. That was a lot
Oh.
of work. Yeah. So
Um,
professionally, that's where most of my time went. And then my kids, I have 3 boys. And
oh,
so
mhm.
a lot of time spent, going to soccer games, baseball
Yeah.
games, things like that. Although my
Mhm.
husband did a lot of that. There came a
Mhm.
time when he sold his business, and we decided instead of him going back to work that this is when my youngest was about 6 years old. And I
Mm.
said, why don't you just take care of all that. So he really stepped up and became active in the PTO, assistant,
Yeah.
not just assistant, but scoutmaster for the Boy
Mhm.
Scouts. And I have 3 Eagle Scouts. All 3 boys are Eagle.
Wow.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. So,
Um, yeah, then I guess, like, sort of, moving away from professional more to, like, personal and, like, community
mhm,
involvements, like, are there
mhm.
anything like, any organizations that you're actively involved with, within, your community? It doesn't have to be law related, obviously.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say community involvement outside of school activities. There's
Mhm.
always been the CACA, the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, and
Mhm.
I can't say that I've been super active, but I did attend a few meetings and would go to most of their functions.
Mhm.
And when I was growing up, my dad was super involved in a lot of Chinese organizations.
Mhm.
There was a Lee Family Association, and
Mhm.
he was very active in that. And then there was an association of family associations, and I don't know exactly how you say it, but I think it was called Zhonghua or something like that. And I
Mhm.
think that's Cantonese, maybe. Um, and so he was active in that organization also. And I think it was really important for those people in the community to get together, and there were resources to help each other out.
Mhm.
They shared information, they shared contacts, networking. Most of them were in business. Yeah.
I
Later
see.
on, as more professionals came in from Hong Kong and Taiwan,
Uh-huh.
and then there were like more engineers and accountants and things like that. There was a
Yeah.
Chinese professional organization, the
Mhm.
CPC, Chinese Professional Club, and my parents were involved in that also.
I
So
see.
not so much myself though.
Yeah. And church, right? You mentioned you still go to church pretty regularly with your family?
I'm sorry, I still go where?
Oh, church?
Well, I do, except once COVID hit, I kind of laid off
Oh.
on that, and
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to go back. My sister just went back, so
Oh.
but the
Mhm.
Catholic Church, most of the Chinese, the early Chinese families actually were Baptists. That's my husband's
Mm.
family included.
Yeah.
His parents and his aunt were like founding members of the Chinese Baptist Church or CBC,
Mhm.
and that group is still very very active. And so
Mhm.
I actually go to some of their functions also when they have a
Yeah.
Chinese New Year event or something like that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But that's been a really good organization for keeping those early Chinese families together still.
Yeah. Um, and then kinda, like, shifting into just general perspectives of, you know, you as a person, I guess well, firstly, you're retired, so congratulations, you know?
Yes, 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 it's
Um,
wonderful.
but, now that you're retired, like, are there any things that you kinda look back on your career and wish like, regrets, but also, like, like, things you're proud of? Yeah, I guess. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I look back and I think I am pretty proud of myself for what I've been able to achieve entering into
Mhm.
the profession, being just a the first thing that comes to my mind is I was kind of a knucklehead. I mean, I was just so oblivious and unaware of what I should
Mhm.
be doing,
Yeah.
and I just kind of, kind of stumbled my way through.
Mhm.
I took an almost a 10-year hiatus from the law while I was working for my parents.
Mhm.
So by the time I got back into immigration law, I was, 30. I don't remember how old I was, but it was over 35 for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess, also on tangent with, like, retirement, it's just like, what are you doing now? Like, what hobbies or recreations do you have, you know?
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's never a dull moment. I really am enjoying not being on a schedule, but
Mhm.
it's a double-edged sword because
Yeah.
if you're not on a schedule, you're not managing your time. And I
Mhm.
really fritter away a lot of time with reading, and you just
Oh.
start going down a rabbit's hole. I have like 4 or 5 newspaper subscriptions, and I just start clicking on this and that on
Mhm.
digital. And I don't do TikTok or anything like that, but I'll get on Facebook. and then I'll click, this and that, and Amazon has been terrible. I'm like, "Oh my gosh," you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
but,
mhm,
now that COVID is kinda dying down, we finally have started traveling again. That's always been really big. My husband and I both, really enjoy traveling a lot of we like hiking, we like getting out.
mhm.
So we're trying to line up trips that are more strenuous so we can do them before our knees give out. And, uh, my mom has not been in the best of health, so a lot of
Mm,
time is spent, with, taking care of, her, situation along with my sisters. It's kind of it takes all of us really to
yeah.
handle that. But that's
Um,
it.
mhm. How about your children? I don't know if I saw how old they were now, but how are they doing
Oh,
now? I'm guessing
they're
you don't have to, like,
yeah.
micromanage them, right?
No, 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 I'm very proud of my kids. They've done great. So my oldest one is 38,
Oh,
and
okay, yeah.
he's all grown up, and he lives in Dallas, and he works
Mhm.
in the financial services industry, and, he's got the travel bug too. He likes to travel. He is very much into music, so he
Mhm,
loves to attend concerts, and a lot of his friends are drummers. He used to be a drummer back in college.
mhm.
Um, Not necessarily in a rock band, but like drumline. Have you ever seen the drumline like at
Yeah.
college games and things like that?
Mhm, mhm,
Yeah,
mhm.
some of them are rock bands too. So
Yeah.
anyway, he really enjoys that. My second son is in Seattle, and
Mhm,
he's human factors engineering was his major. So he works
mhm,
for one of the tech companies. He's married and is doing great in Seattle. And then the
mhm.
youngest is 26, and he's an electrical engineer, and he's in Dallas also.
Oh, nice.
He's working on, I think, wearable medical devices.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's cool.
yeah, that's an achievement also, I think, to
Mhm.
get all three of them off the parental payroll.
Yeah, yeah. They're all
Yeah.
good.
They're all good.
Um,
Yeah, they're
I
great.
guess, like, kinda, like, going back to, like, values from your upbringing, what are some values or, like, lessons you tried to give your kids as, a parent?
Well, a lot of the lessons about, i- get into a practical degree that you can earn a living with because you
Mhm.
want to, make money and get a certain standard of living. And then everything else that you want to do that's, speaks to your heart, you can probably do it through volunteer work. If you're lucky enough to be able to do it in your career, that's all the better.
Mhm.
But I don't know if they really have bought that. It's a different generation.
Yeah.
But I think it's still sound advice. Maybe people won't agree with me, but I
Mhm.
think that especially as my parents worked so hard, and the parents of my generation worked so hard,
Mhm.
and made sure that we all tried to get good education so that we could get good paying jobs so that we could have a certain standard of living. I
Yeah.
mean, you don't have to have a Lamborghini, but you
Mhm.
want to at least be able to buy a Honda or a Ford or something,
Yeah. Yeah.
have a roof over your head in a safe neighborhood, things like that. So
Mhm.
try to take care of that first, and everything else is just up to what you want and desire. But I do think if you just if your kids are given like if they're not given certain boundaries, or at least encouraged to stay within certain boundaries, I think sometimes some of them can get a little bit too lost with too much choice.
Yeah.
So, and
Yeah.
people may argue, I'm open to having a discussion about that. But that's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
what I'm thinking. Yeah.
I mean, you you have what, like 30, 40 extra years long of experience. I'm sure some of it will come in handy to them, right? So,
Yeah, yeah. We have really enjoyed them as adults. We take
mhm.
family vacations. We enjoy getting
Oh,
together,
mhm.
when we can. It's unfortunate they're all outside of Houston, but they say, "Mom, we can't take the weather. It's just too
Yeah.
hot and humid." But
Mhm.
when we travel and get together, we really have a nice time. We have good discussions. Yeah,
Yeah. I
and
guess, like,
they don't agree with me on
uh
everything, but I'll still tell them this. You can have your opinion. I can have my opinion, right?
yeah. Um, Yeah, I guess this is a fun question.
Yeah.
Like, if you could only use 3 words to describe yourself, what would they be and why?
Oh, 3 words. The first one I'd say would be grateful. Very
Mhm,
grateful, very thankful for
mhm,
all the opportunity, all the love that I received as a kid growing up, and the guidance and the hard work and sacrifice that my parents made. Lot of gratitude.
mhm.
The second word, and this is a word to describe me or what I feel or what?
I I think to describe yourself, but honestly, go for it. Whatever you wanna say. I'll
Um,
even give you 4 words if you want.
if I want, oh gosh, you're gonna make me start rambling. Okay, so I wake up every morning feeling very grateful. I covered that.
Mhm.
The other thing would be to pay attention to your health. And, that was just kind of like everybody would say that, and your parents would always say, if you don't have your health, you don't. But now I'm kind of really seeing that as my parents' generation are aging. I realize that, man, if you don't take care of yourself every day, and it's not easy because we grew up in a grocery store before there was very much information out there about
Mhm.
healthy eating. And I mean, we ate those, ding dongs and little Debbie's and, all the,
Yeah.
honey buns, whatever. I mean,
Mhm.
we had good food too, but yeah, we had a lot of snack food. So every day, take care of yourself. And I guess the other thing would be, make sure to take care of other people. Give as much as you can give,
Mhm. I
of
like
your
it.
time, of your money, whatever you
Mhm.
have to give, give.
Yeah. I guess I have some like general questions, like as someone who grew up in Houston, spent most of their, like childhood here,
Hmm.
their educational life here, and then, professional life here. And now just you're just living here.
Yeah.
Like how have you seen this city like grow? Like I'm sure it's a much different place now than it was a long time ago.
Yeah, yeah, it's really, really tremendously different. I mean, I think back when I was a child, we rode the bus a lot, and I
Mm,
remember being able to get on a bus when I was like 9 years old and go downtown and go
mhm,
buy things at that time it was called Foley's, now it's Macy's, at the
mhm.
department store, and my mom would have a little note, and she'd just send me on the bus, and I mean, can you imagine? That'd be like child abuse now, you
Yeah.
know? Just
Uh-huh.
to send your 9-year-old child girl by herself
Yeah.
downtown on a bus.
Mhm.
But things were slower paced, and I think there was just a lot more trust in people that they would do the right thing. And by and
Yeah.
large, people did do the right thing.
Mhm.
On the other hand, back in those times, I think there probably was a lot of denial of opportunity because of racial prejudice,
Mhm.
discrimination.
Yeah.
So that's a bad thing. Um, Back then there was not that much of a choice in terms of going out to eat in a restaurant. I mean,
Mhm.
pretty much you cooked at home. So if you think of Houston right now, it's quite a foodie town.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's fun that you can go, anywhere and get any kind of food
Mhm.
from, Ethiopian, Guatemalan, Malaysian. I mean, just any country you name, you'd be able
Mhm.
to find the food here.
Yeah.
And that by and large, I mean, there is such an opportunity for business.
Mhm.
There's not, if it just sounds so cliched, but if
Mhm.
you want to work hard and if you treat people right, you can
Yeah.
definitely succeed. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Definitely. Houston is what, like the 4th largest city now? And
Yeah, I think it might be creeping up to third largest,
yeah,
but
it's
yeah, there's always been an openness and accepting of Houstonians to allow
yeah.
people to succeed and do their best. There's a lot of respect for hard work.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's an amazing, really diverse city.
yeah, yeah,
And I guess like, a question I had was like, I guess it kind of goes back to like what you were saying, like when you were growing up, I guess in like the 60s and 70s, there
yeah.
was a lot of like, social movement, right? And like I feel like we can kind of see that in today's time as well, especially, with like the passing of COVID, there's like the whole
Yeah.
BLM that like rose, and then even more recently, like the AAPI like community has been
Mhm,
getting a lot
mhm.
stronger, right?
Yeah.
Like how would you say, like how would you say you've witnessed sort of all of these things in Houston, at least, the Houston community?
Well, I would say that prior to, and I'll just put it right out there, prior to the election of Trump, I had so much optimism. And I just felt
Yeah.
like Houston was like, there's nothing stopping anybody in Houston.
Mhm.
And that the people were, by and large, more kind, more generous, more open, more giving,
Mhm.
more optimistic than any other city in the world. You know,
Mhm.
very, very high on Houston. I would say that unfortunately, um, I think that there's been some hidden elements or some suppression of, um, how some people feel, and they realize that maybe they shouldn't feel that way or didn't feel comfortable expressing how they feel. And I'm talking about, uh, you know, basically fascist fascist tendencies
Yeah.
of people who feel like they're superior or better, and that
Mhm.
the this country or this city is only for them, and
Mhm.
nobody else should be here but them for whatever
Yeah.
reason. And I think some of that bubbling up and out has been kind of shocking for me.
Mhm.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
you know yeah, the harassment of Asians, whether
Yeah.
it's for COVID or whatever reason, I don't know what's gotten into people's heads, but
Mhm.
still working on that, on how to, what do you call it, become optimistic again.
Yeah. I think it's really saddening to hear all of these, like, events, of all these hate crimes and things like that, but, um, it also makes me feel better knowing, like, there are people out there who want to make a difference, and, like, Houston itself is pretty liberal, I feel like, with a lot of movements going on. At least within my experience is, like, kinda contained within the Rice area, within, like, the downtown area, not so much the large
Yeah,
suburban communities
yeah, I would
outside,
say
but
definitely Loop 610 is a little bit of an insular bubble, like an
yeah,
illusion.
yeah. But, yeah, actually, I had, like, a couple questions about COVID-19. Like,
Yeah.
I guess you could say maybe it's dying down now, but it's still a very relevant, pandemic, I think, and it spiked in, like, 2020, right? And I see you retired in 2020, so hopefully you didn't experience too many disruptions, in your, like, daily life with it, but
I kinda did. I had a lot of
really.
plans of, especially, "Oh, I'm retired now, I'm gonna go travel," right?
Ah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that really curtailed the travel plans,
Mhm.
and also, I mean, we just didn't get together with people. I mean, we really
Yeah.
stayed home a lot, a
Mhm.
lot. We set up a few family Zoom calls and things like that,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, it kind of made you more introspective. We started cooking a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we walked the dog a lot, so she probably got healthier.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I've heard, like, lots of people say, like, "Oh, yeah, like, obviously COVID is terrible and all," but I think there's some, like, silver linings to,
Yeah,
being locked in quarantine with your loved ones,
exactly, exactly,
so
yeah, and then I think, just kind of coming from the parents that I did, because both my parents went through World War II, like,
mm,
in war-torn countries. Like, my dad
mhm.
was in China and my mom was in Europe, as
Oh,
children, yeah, so I
yeah.
think that we grew up a lot with, don't even start telling us how hard you have it. You don't know what hard is. You don't know what a
Mhm,
hard
mhm.
life is.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
still remember those stories.
uh-huh. Um, yeah. I guess you pick up any new hobbies or recreations during that time or no?
Um, I've been trying to get involved in some of these series that are on all these. I mean, I didn't have time, so I really didn't know even how to get onto Netflix, or, I mean, I have this we have so many TV wands, I didn't even know which one to use or anything. So
Yeah.
I would say that's the only thing I learned how to do is
Yeah.
find entertainment on cable TV. Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, seems like you're more of an outdoors person, and thankfully you can get some traveling in, hopefully.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, no, we've done okay, yeah, with
yeah.
plans for more. I started reading a lot more books for fun.
Mm.
The public library is great. You can get books online now, and
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of titles, so
Mhm.
that's awesome. I still like paper too,
Yeah.
but I mean, I do both. Yeah.
Mhm. Um, yeah, I guess, like, those are the bulk of my questions. You've done a wonderful job of, like, answering them. Um, are there anything else, like, you'd like to share? I mean, let's say, like, to the people who may be watching this later, what would do you have any advice for, like, students or people who are interested in law, but maybe not just specifically law, just, like, kind of, pioneering like you did, pursuing their passions? Do you have any, like, advice or
Yeah.
lessons? Mhm.
Yeah, I would say that, definitely if you're so inclined and you can stay in school that,
Yeah.
even if it's not your favorite thing to do, but if you
Mhm.
can do it and just, it will open doors for you. But
Yeah.
if not, what I've learned is that there are many circuitous ways to success in life.
Mhm.
And if you really school is just not for you, then do something else and just apply yourself to it, and you will
Mhm.
come out just fine. You will come out
Mhm.
just fine. I think people just have to have that perseverance and be willing to sacrifice, be willing to do the work in it, but get really, really good at what you
Yeah.
like to do, and then success will come to you. And
Mhm.
don't leave other people behind. Everybody should be lifting each other up.
I
That's
like
it.
those words.
Good.
Yeah. Um, well, I guess that's all I have for you. Do you have any other, like, final words, final thoughts? Like, you've done a really good job answering my questions, so,
N-
um,
No, I'm sure after we get off this call, I will think of all kinds of things I should have said. But I
yeah.
think you got a lot of information from me that I've enjoyed
Yeah.
sharing, and you've done a great job interviewing, Sam.
Thank
Good.
you. I'll end the recording for this part for here right now then.
Okay.